the second reading and on the amendment moved by the member for Whitlam.
The question is that the words proposed to be omitted stand part of the bill, and I call the member for Dunkley in continuation.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Where I left off was I was talking about the number of insolvency events that occur in the construction sector, and why, as someone who represents an electorate with a large number of tradesmen and women who are sole traders, subcontractors and family businesses, I was very proud of the policy that Labor took to the last election about a tradie pay guarantee. And really what that is about is security of payments, ensuring that those subcontracting tradespeople in the construction industry get paid. And we know that there have been a number of collapses of larger businesses that operate in the construction industry which have left those down the supply chain out of pocket. So Labor's tradie pay guarantee framework that we took to the last election would implement the best practice recommendations of the Murray Review of Security of Payment Laws, accepting three key policy considerations. We need to preserve the cash flow of the party that has carried out construction work or provided related goods and services by enshrining their right to receive prompt payment of progress claims. We need to provide an adjudication process that ensures disputed payment claims are quickly and efficiently determined so that prompt payments can be made. And we need to protect payments made in respect of a progress claim so that parties who receive the payment hold the payment for those to whom it is rightfully due through a cascading statutory trust. Labor proposed a federal security of payments framework which would either be achieved by harmonisation across the states or states referring their constitutional powers to the Commonwealth to implement a national security of payments framework. And a federal government can start that process by putting in place statutory trusts for construction projects that have significant Commonwealth funding. And I urge the current government to go back to the Murray Review to look at those policy considerations and to implement those sorts of policies which will go a very long way to giving security to tradesmen and women who need it, particularly now, to pay their rent, to pay their mortgages, to look after their families. I just want to return briefly to the substance of this bill and note, as my colleagues have, that this bill was presented to this House with a lack of consultation with small business groups, with a lack of consultation with insolvency experts and accounting bodies. There was a release of legislation and regulations for consultation 4 days, 4 working days and a weekend to absorb and critique complex and very important reforms. And that's not sufficient. This is an important reform, as the Treasurer has said, and it is a reform that Labor would like to support, but there are concerns that need to be addressed. How are cash-strapped small businesses going to pay for restructuring? What protections do suppliers have? How are stakeholders going to know about a company being in a restructuring plan when the company doesn't have to disclose it and the ASIC registers aren't being updated properly? What impacts will this have on credit availability for small businesses? And with a new class of liquidator created, but lesser education and experience requirements, how will creditors and stakeholders be protected? These measures may well help struggling businesses in the short term, and that's why my colleagues and I won't stand against them. But we do need to remind this government that it will be held to account, and we do need to make sure that any adverse effects of these reforms are addressed, because we know that even legislation put into place with the best intention can have unintended adverse consequences either in the design or the implementation. One example, which is being experienced by a small business in my electorate called Skate House, is with the Job Seeker wage subsidy program. Skate House applied for Job Seeker in April and were successful and received necessary and very important $60,000 worth of Job Seeker payments, only to then be told by the Australian Tax Office in September that they were reconsidered as not eligible and now owe a debt of $60,000. It's not hard to imagine what that has done on an emotional and psychological, let alone a financial level, to a relatively new small business, to the people that run it and their 4 employees who have just been struggling to keep that business going through the global pandemic. They've been able to open now that restrictions have been lifted. Roller derby has started up again, and it's part of the state program of This Girl Can to support girls and women to get involved in exercise, not necessarily mainstream exercise. But Bernadine and her partner and the people that work at Skate House are still so anxious about whether or not their application to the ATO to review that decision, which they say is based on an erroneous assessment of whether or not they employed staff, will be successful. So it's really important when we bring in these measures that are intended to help small businesses that they don't have unintended consequences which can make life even worse. So this legislation will start on January 1, provided a couple of safeguards are put in place to stop any unforeseen consequences, because it has been rushed. Labor has moved amendments seeking a review of the operation of the reforms in practice to identify adverse consequences on small businesses and to propose legislative solutions. We want a sunset clause so that if solutions developed by the review are not implemented, the measures will expire after 2 years. So I say to the chamber, these are simple, sensible safeguards which would ensure these changes by the government do what they are supposed to do, help small business, because we know now more than ever our local small businesses need our help. I just want to finish my contribution by reminding everyone to shop local. And over these summer holidays, when many people can't travel for their holidays like they usually do, take the choice to holiday at home, particularly in my magnificent electorate of Dunkley, and we encourage people to come and visit us. Holiday on the beach. Experience our little sliver of Australian paradise, support our local boutiques and cafes and restaurants, the new beer hall on Plain Street, Dayton Brothers, that spirited lot, and I can personally attest to the quality of their gin. Go to Mount Eliza Village, experience the whole world in a small village with all of the different goods that are on sale, and make sure you go to Langwarrin and go through the Flora and Fauna Park and see just what a magnificent place Dunkley is. Shop local, support our local businesses, and come and visit Dunkley. Thank you.
I thank the member for Dunkley. The question is that the words proposed be omitted. I call the member for Sturt.